Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Hometown Chess Hero. My name is Daniel Gormally, and I'm joined here by my fellow British Chess Championship commentator, Nicholas Pert. So, hi, Nick. How's it going, mate?
Hi, Danny. Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah. So, are you looking forward to being shut in a room with me in Liverpool for 9 days? That's going to be like
Yeah, it's quite exciting, So I'm sure a lot of people will be very jealous of me.
Oh, don't worry, there will be other people in the building, so you should be okay. But yeah, what we're going to do today, which we thought was quite interesting, was maybe do a preview of the championships and talk about who we think are the most likely contenders, who we think could be like a possible dark horse, could be like an upset, and that will set the tone. Hopefully, that was the plan, set the scene for what should be a very exciting. Because you're a former British Championship winner, British Chess Championship winner yourself, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as strong a tournament as this one, but we've both played, I think, quite a lot of times over the years and
Mm.
had a few close calls. I mean, I know I've been second on quite a few occasions, so it was nice to win one. But you've also been quite close to winning the tournament a few times as well. So
Yeah, I
know how it
mean,
feels.
it's all I would say. The difference between commentating and playing is that if I had a pound for every time somebody asked me why am I not playing, I'd probably win more than the first prize at the British, right?
You'd probably win more than you normally win anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think commentating is a lot more makes for a lot more enjoyable to 9 days because you're a lot more relaxed, especially in the morning. Morning you're like tense. If you got like black against Michael Adams in the afternoon, or black against Gawain or Vita Yugov, you know, you or even white against them or whoever you're playing, you're going to be quite tense. When you're doing a commentary, it's more or less like a paid holiday, in my experience.
Yeah, I think it's the preparation that's what causes the tension. I don't really mind once I'm in the game, and I don't even really mind if I
Mm.
lose a game, but I just hate the idea of losing out of preparation. So I do find the mornings can be quite tense because you just don't want to be completely caught off guard by your opponent.
Absolutely. I just played a tournament in Hungary. I think I was telling you about that just before we started the call. It's in Lake Balaton, which is like uh, the largest lake in Central Europe. And but the Wi-Fi in my hotel was really bad. So I didn't really prepare. And there was one game, because I lost the first two games, there was one game in round three I didn't do any preparation for at all. And I actually sat down at the wrong board as well. So I like sat down the wrong board and shook my opponent's hand and then told that I was actually on the next board.
Yeah.
And
And
but
your opponent was probably feeling quite confident at that point.
yeah, yeah. But I actually won in about 17 moves with White, like 18, 19 moves. And so it's the only game I did no preparation for. So I actually think that sometimes if you don't prepare, you go in there with a more relaxed attitude. But I thought what we would do is talk about the players one by one and talk. And I've actually written down what I think the odds are for, uh, or what I think roughly their chances are of winning the event.
Sure, yeah. I've had a really quick look at the odds as well, but I've got an idea myself who I think the favourites are. Maybe you could start off with who you think the sort of most favourite player is to win the championship.
Well, I think the most likely winner is the top seed, Vita Yugov. And the reason I would say that is because he's a little bit younger than Adams, so you could argue he's more in his prime.
I think
Obviously,
he's only
Mike.
about 38, isn't he? I think Vichugov.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when he first came over to Russia, so he was brought over as a player to partly to help the younger English players, people like Shreyas, with preparation, stuff like that. There was a bit of controversy when he was added, but he started to play more tournaments now in England. He played the British Rapid Play earlier this year. He won. He beat me in round seven, I think it was. Um, so he started to play a bit more, and his
Does he live
form.
in England?
I'm not sure if he lives in England or not, but I think he does actually, possibly, but in London.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah,
um,
I sort of agree with you that I think he is the favourite as well. And I've actually played against him a long time ago in 2007 in a
hmm,
European individual championship. And back then, he was really a promising player. I think the previous year come second in the World Junior Championship, and he sort of got up towards 2750 level, and I actually thought he might go on to become one of the really elite players in the world. So he maybe, if anything, slightly
Mm.
underperformed the expectations of that stage because it felt like it really could have been one of the very top players in the world. It just has a really strong all-round game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I know he's been like in the World Cup and he's been like the last stages of the World Cup and he's won the Russian Championships, which to be honest, the Russian Championships is a lot stronger than the British Championships. So yeah, I would say that I mean, I'd put him as 5-2. What sort of price would you make him?
Okay, I actually put 2-1. I was a bit tighter, but I thought he was definitely the
Yeah.
favourite for the championship. But yeah, roughly the same sort of ballpark anyway.
By the way, I think Pert bookmakers might be able to pay out, but Gourmet bookmakers can definitely not be able to pay out if you place any bets.
That's why we have tighter odds.
Yeah. So Adams come to net. Actually, the second person I placed is the defending champion, Gawain. But I think he had a great season last year. He won like the British, the English, and he also won a London Classic. He had like the perfect year chess wise. But I think the problem is when you do that, there's generally like a bit of a come down, and we've seen this year because he hasn't. His results have not been quite as good so far. But he's only really played Rapid Play and Blitz.
Yeah, I had Gawain as the second favourite, so I don't know if you agreed with that or did you go for Mickey? But
Yeah,
I
that
thought
no, I
Gawain,
had Gawain as second favourite as well. It's interesting. We're basically agreeing with each other. Yeah, it's a
yes,
good sign.
quite unusual. But yeah, I think he just, obviously a very strong player. One thing I noticed about Gawain, which was quite interesting, is he was always quite a sort of tricky player, and he played these sort of slightly offbeat lines. And to be honest, against the likes of us, he was quite effective. And then I think
Mm,
when he sort of came up against the really elite players, he probably struggled a bit. And
mm,
I sort of felt like he
mm.
changed his style a bit and tried to become, sort of a bit more pragmatic, tried to play sort of more solid openings. And I'm not quite sure if that suited him particularly well. Someone like obviously Mickey, is quite able to deal with these elite players playing his sort of solid style, whereas Gawain I felt was better suited to slightly more sort of tricky openings and catching out slightly weaker players. I don't know if you have any
No,
thoughts
I'd
on
go
that.
along with that. I mean, the only thing I would say, I actually got a reasonable record against Gawain. I'm not saying I got a lot of positive score against him, but in comparison to people like Michael Adams and David Howe, who are more positional, I'd say Vitor Yugov in that category as well is more technical. I think Gawain is like at his heart, he's a bit of a hacker. But what I noticed last year when he was after the playoff and he was discussing his game, he was a lot more rounded than I realised. You
Yeah,
know,
I think he's definitely worked on his game, hasn't he? He's tried to become more of an all-round player than he used to be.
that's right. And I think I think he's obviously a massive contender. I've got him down as 4-1.
Okay.
What odds have you got him down as?
I think I had him down as 7-2, so I'm just a tighter bookmaker than you.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, the
I don't
thing
know
is, you got to
if odds
price
are
up
that
everyone,
relevant.
haven't you? It's quite a big field, right?
Yeah, so yeah, but
What?
for me, uh, I think it would be a huge surprise if someone outside the top three won it. That's just my personal opinion.
Mm.
I feel like the
I
top
actually
three.
disagree. I think they're more.
Okay, well, we'll
Well,
see.
firstly, one thing we should mention is it could be late entries because obviously you've got people like David Howe's won it before. You have got Luke McShane.
Sure. I mean
Uh,
that would definitely
I
change
would
the
change it
situation.
massively. David
Yeah.
would possibly come in as the top seed. But
Yeah.
having said that, I still think it wouldn't change my outlook, which is that I think we could have an upset this year because David doesn't really play much. Don't get me wrong; he's a lot stronger than most of the
Still
players
very,
in
very
it.
strong, isn't he?
Still very strong. Luke,
I don't see an upset. I think it's very unlikely.
really, wow.
Well, I mean, obviously there are some incredibly talented players, but if you look at the history, there have been talented players in the past, and the top players have always won. So,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. I mean, I think that all the years we playing, when there's been a 2600, the only year I can remember where it wasn't, where David was a bit off form in 2015. I think you beat him that week uh, in
was
Coventry.
that Jonathan Hawkins? Did he win that year?
Jonathan Hawkins wasn't quite 2600, but he was quite close to it. It was
Yeah.
like 2580. I think the best he got to was about 2590. And David was the only 2600 player playing that year.
Yeah, 'cause I think
Whereas,
when there's only one, I guess there's more chance that they could be a little bit off form. But when there's three or
Mm.
four, yeah,
By the
it's
way, I think we're hoping for better light. I think your lighting's quite good, but my lighting's not the best. So hopefully, it's like I'm even filming down the basement or something,
I
right?
think people are probably quite happy about that.
I've got a face. I've got a face for radio. I've got a face for radio. But once it was told, but yeah, no. I mean, that's the thing. So the next people we come to really are probably, I would say, the fourth
Like, are
favorite.
you? I mean, so you got Michael Adams obviously as the third favorite.
Yeah, what odds have you got for Michael Adams?
Um, I mean, I thought probably maybe 5 to 1, but that sounds like quite a big price. Maybe nine to
Yeah,
two.
that's exactly the same odds I've got. I've got him
Yeah.
at 5 to 1. Now, if you go back 3 or 4 years, you'd have had him odds on for this. But I think it's changed a lot last few years that he's not as dominant as he was.
No, I mean the other thing about him, I mean, I remember talking to him in the Leicester British, and I think a couple of rounds from the end,
Mm,
he was tied for first, and he said, he'd be happy just to make 1.5 out of the last two, and if somebody finished ahead of him, then well done to them. And I think that's sort of his attitude. He doesn't always maybe go for the win as much as he should do. I think he over respects some of his opponents, especially when he's black. He might give a
mm,
2500 a draw. And
that's
I think in this kind
interesting.
of field, in 9 rounds, you just have to try and beat them. And
Yeah, I mean that's the reason why I think like he could get an upset because it's only 9 rounds and there's a lot of players, so it must almost be odds on a playoff. Because probably the winning score is going to be almost certainly 7 or 7.5. I mean, you could get somebody getting to 8, but if you get 7, it's very likely you're going to be in a playoff. You're not going to win it
yeah.
outright. So therefore, someone like what tends to happen, Nick, is you get down to the last 2 or 3 rounds, and people have a chance. People like Brandon, Ami. I mean, that's why I come to like Ami. I think Ami this year has actually got a great chance of winning it as an upset win.
Okay, I mean, I actually had him slightly lower down in the odds, and not because have any sort of questions about his play. Obviously, he's an incredibly strong player, but I have actually played that seeding where you're the number one, where you're the
Yeah.
highest seeded player who's not these sort of elite players, and I tend to find that you're quite likely to get the strong players in the later rounds because if you float up to the strong
Mm.
players. If they've played each other and they have to float down, they always float down to you. So I think
Mm.
Amit might, and maybe Brandon as well, they might end up with quite an uncomfortable pairing, maybe 2 or 3 rounds from the end. That's just speaking from my own personal experience. So I think that might count against them slightly. And I mean, for me, I had the four favorite down as Shreyas. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah. So what odds have you got for Shreyas?
Well, I mean, the odds are a bit. I had him at 12 to 1, but I mean, the odds are a
Well, our odds
bit
are very
random.
similar, mate. I've got him at 14 to 1. So you always like
I'm
tiny
tighter.
bit.
You're more generous.
Yeah, I'm like, so I've got Amit at, I'll tell you what I've got on Amit. I've got Amit at 16 to 1.
So you actually agreed then you had Ami as a sort of less of a chance than Shreyas.
No, but just on the odds. But I feel that I just got a good feeling about Amit this year. And the other one I'd say, who I think has got an outside chance of winning, is Matthew Wadsworth. And
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Matthew is he's got really good understanding. He's a really solid player. I mean, I actually trained him a little bit when he was younger, not that much, but I played him a lot of times over the years. And yeah, he's got a phenomenal understanding, very hard to beat. Could be the kind of player that might cause an upset. He might beat one of the top players.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. He plays quite a fair bit. I'm not sure if he's played that much recently, but he played at Isle of Wight a few months ago and he tied first there. And okay, that's a weaker field than what we got here, but it's not much weaker.
sure.
And he had a chance to win that outright. So uh yeah, I mean I think he's one of the main contenders. But obviously you look at people like Brandon Clark came equal first in Cambridge, or I think he just lost out on tiebreak. Or
Yeah, I mean,
possibly was a half a point off. I'm not sure,
he's
but
another one I played because he used to go to a college which I taught. So I think I played him hundreds of times before Blitz.
yeah,
So I mean,
yeah,
obviously now he's much stronger because he's older. But yeah, I think he's probably just they're all quite similar, aren't they? Like Ami, Brandon. I think Daniel Fernandez is a very talented player as well. Like he could be someone
Absolutely,
to sort of cause an
absolutely.
upset. But you can sort of see by the ratings, they're all quite similar. And they're all very talented players, and on their day, they're all very, very dangerous. I actually think
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Carry on, mate.
I think Daniel Fernandez could be one of the dark horses if I had to pick someone because I think he's really got. I mean, his openings have always been a little bit unorthodox, but he's got really good understanding. Um,
Yeah, he's talented, but I would say the difference between him and Ami is Ami's done a lot of work on his openings with uh, Tristan Cox. I get the impression that Daniel just doesn't do that work. Like if he did that work on his openings, obviously for any of these guys to win outside the top three, obviously barring David Howell or Luke McShane entering, that would be a different scenario. But which to be honest, I would expect David to enter because he tends to enter quite late, and I think he does it partly for psychological reasons to kind of intimidate the opposition. Now, I don't think people like Vic Yugov and Adams and Gawain are going to be bothered, but maybe some of the people lower down freaked out a little bit by David coming in late.
okay.
Um, so I think David might enter late. Not sure about Louis Shan. I don't think he will play. But on the ECF website, I do remember reading a few months ago that they said that they wanted to make this the strongest British ever. So, given that, it would be surprising if David didn't play or Luke McShane didn't play because surely it's a weaker tournament on paper almost than last year because last year you had four 2600s and this year currently you've only got three, right?
Yeah, so I'm sure they've been invited anyway, but yeah, I don't know if they're going to turn up or not. And obviously, they didn't put you in the tournament. I mean, that would have made it
Well,
even stronger.
I might play some of the side events. I mean, it's like the Cheltenham Festival. You got so many tournaments at the British. You've got like all these blitz tournaments. You've got all these junior events. You've got even got the senior events. I mean, our good friend Keith. What would odds would you put for people like Keith Arkle? Also, your brother's playing. I've got your brother 80 to 1.
Yeah, that's quite similar to me. I mean, I think he's playing really well recently. He's playing a lot because,
Mm,
his children play, in particular, Max is very keen, but they're both very good. And he's playing a lot. I actually think the gap between myself and him has come down in the last 2 or 3 years. So I think I
mm,
was always like quite a bit better than him, but now I feel like we're much closer than we used to be. Um,
definitely,
yeah, so
definitely.
I feel like he's really playing well, but obviously it is a very strong field, so that's going to be hard for him. I mean, if I just sort of scroll down a bit, so he's 50th seed at the moment, and there might be even more players to enter. But yeah, I feel like he could do quite well in a tournament
I
like
think I
this.
think I think Richard would do well when he's paired up against people like maybe the big boys. He'll be up for those games. But when he's playing against a Bazakusta or a super tier, like a younger player who's underrated, or Stanley Badasconi, then I think he might struggle because they're going to be like super ahead for him, and he's going to be juggling his
He's
helping
quite
his
tricky
kids.
with his openings, isn't he? So he can move it around a bit. I mean, I mean, Baza Kutska, we haven't spoken about him. I actually played against him quite recently and gave
Mm.
him his GM norm, which was quite generous.
Yeah. Well, I helped out. I helped out with
Yeah.
that as well. Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously a very good player, but I mean, I definitely had chances. I mean, I think, before I blundered, I was clearly winning in that game. So, obviously, against someone like me, you can get away with it, but against the top players, you can't afford to give them, winning positions because they'll just convert them. So, yeah, obviously, a very talented player and could be in the mix as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably one of the best younger players in Europe. Really. I mean, for his
Yeah.
age, he must be one of the best players, maybe even in the world. Like for his age, he's very, very good for his age. And I'm not sure how old he is. He's only about
I think
16,
he's
17.
about, yeah, maybe 17 or 18. But yeah, he's a very talented player. So certainly someone who could, of course, actually, there's quite a few like talented players, aren't there? They're very young in this tournament. Obviously,
Mm.
Shreyas. I mean, even Freddie Gordon's very young, isn't he? He's only about, is he 15? And he's
I I
he's
played
already like
Freddie, yeah,
24 at the
recently in
moment.
the Foreign Cell, and afterwards in the post-mortem, I was really impressed with, his understanding was very high, and I thought, yeah, you got people there. There's all these young players, and they're thinking, right, can I have the best performance of my life? As for someone like Amit to win the British, would probably, even for someone like Amit, that would probably be more or less the best or one of the best performances of his career, right? He'd have to get a
It,
GM
it
norm,
would be.
GM norm
I just
level.
think he's going to be quite
Mm.
tough for him with the way the pairings are, and also there's so many younger players as well. But obviously he's an incredibly strong player, like really, really strong player. So of course he's got a chance.
Well, should I read out the odds of everyone I've done? So
Go on then.
I've got Vic Hugo 5-2, Jones 4-1, Adams 5-1, Shreyas 14-1, Amit 16-1, Wadsworth 25-1, Fernandez 25-1, Brandon Clark 28-1, Marcus Harvey 40-1, Baza Kusta, I've got him at 50-1.
Yeah, that's quite a big
Yeech,
price.
yeah,
50 to
yeah,
1.
that might be a bit of each way value, right?
Yeah.
Also
Essentially, you have to
with the
bet with a
younger
different
players.
bookmaker.
You could argue he's not much weaker than Shreyas, and Shreyas I've got a much shorter price, but he did do well last year. He beat David, and he was up there. Shreyas, he drew with
Yeah.
Mickey.
I mean,
Uh,
Shreyas has played those top players a lot, hasn't he? He's sort of proved himself against them.
Absolutely. I got Jonah Willow, somebody else who always threatens to make a breakthrough at 66-1. I've got Richard, your brother, 80-1, and then he goes down to Roberson 100, Yi Chen 100-1. I probably left people out. Apologies if I left people out. I got Hebden 125-1. I got Wells 150-1. And then assorted others, I've done Super Tip Banerjee at 400-1. Stanley Badasconi and Bodhana. I'm not sure if she's playing actually. I've got her, Bodhana Sivadan, at 500-1 for both of them.
Yeah,
Stanley.
I mean, she's sort of probably too young to win the British, but if she was playing, she could try to win the ladies' prize. I mean, who are the top players? Harriet Hunt, Lanyao. I mean, they're probably the favourites, aren't they? Probably those two
Um,
for the British women's title.
yeah, absolutely. If I scroll down the list, yeah, she
Get her
doesn't seem
further.
to be on the entries. Is she on
No, she's
the?
not. She's not on there, is she?
She's not on, but she might enter later.
She might do. I mean, they're a really nice family, actually. I got to know them a bit in the World Team Blitz Championship, but yeah, obviously just incredibly talented player, but still quite young, I think, to be talking about winning a British Championship,
Mm,
maybe in a few years' time. Um,
absolutely. So I mean, there's some other names here. There's Siva Mahadevan, who I believe won a quite a strong weekender recently. He's an IM. He's from India.
yeah, the Indian players are
Um,
normally quite strong, aren't they?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Rajat Maka, he's very young. He could be a dangerous player as well. He's
Raja, yeah,
yeah, he's a very strong player.
he's based in London, I think, he was
I thought
certainly
he
at
used to be
school in
based in
London.
Reading. Maybe he goes to school in London. But yeah, he was very
Yeah, I think the
talented
school in
player.
Hampton or something like that, right? Hampton School
Yeah.
possibly, but yeah, there's a lot of players. It's almost like an international leaderboard, isn't it? I thought it was supposed to be a British Championships, and it's like,
Sure. I mean, it's also interesting because a lot of them are playing in the English Championship, which is coming up in a couple of
yeah,
weeks' time. So that
yeah,
might give you a bit of a preview as to how they're going to fare in the main championship.
absolutely. I mean, I'm not playing in that because I'm playing in a tournament in Ghent in Belgium. I
Yeah.
think Fernandez is playing that same tournament in Belgium.
Yeah, it's good. It's
But
a good warm up. I think a lot of people use it as a warm up event. It was quite funny actually because I was looking up just out of interest. I decided to look up, the previous like English champions
mm,
just to see if there was some sort of correlation between the English
mm.
champions and the British champions, and then I actually saw my name on the list, and I didn't actually realize I'd been English champion before. But
Really, when did you win it?
well, they actually combined it. They used to combine it with the British
Oh,
championship.
because you won the 2020
One,
British
yeah,
Championships. Oh, was
yeah,
it 2021 in oh, right.
2021. So I was actually English champion. So. Yeah, but then nowadays they've got obviously all the strong players and they treat it as a separate event, which is really good because,
Mm.
it's just more top level chess in this
So it
country.
wasn't enough for you to win a British. You had to win the English just to rub it into me as well, yeah.
Got the English Championship as well. Actually, one player who's missing on the list is Stuart Conquest because he
Uh,
was the last player to win in Liverpool, wasn't he, in 2008? I don't know if
well, the
you
reason
remember
why
that
I've
you.
I've got people like the older people longer odds is I think having experience. If you're trying someone who's trying to break through and win, I think it's actually a negative because I think that's why people like Mark Hebden and Keith Arkle and Peter Wells have never quite won the British because because they attempted early and they were coming close early, but you build up this scar tissue. The same with me. You build
Sure.
up this scar tissue, and you probably had the same thing, but obviously you broke through in the end. But it was more difficult than possibly you expected it to be when you first
I
started playing the
mean,
British.
yeah, it was quite close on a number of occasions. But I guess somebody
Mm.
like Harry Grieve, for example, just went and won straight away, didn't he? So
That's right, 2023 British. I think you were the top seed. And that's another
20,
reason why
2022, I think, wasn't it?
2022, sorry, at Torquay. And that was another reason why I tipped Wadsworth, because Wadsworth lost to Grieve in that final round. But if he'd have won that game, he would have gone into playoff against you with
Yeah.
7 out of 9, right? But Harry Grieve won it outright with 7.5. But yeah, Harry had no scar tissue, and I was going in there thinking this is a great chance to win. Mark Hebden, remember him being quite nervous early on when I chatted to him because I think there was a lot of pressure. He didn't start very well. Keith was in contention to win, but then towards the end he started like halving out. When
I mean
like
that's
Harry was
quite
just going
dangerous,
for
isn't
it.
it? When you start halving out, you lose. I think we had a British once where we were both winning. I remember there was one year where I think
Swansea maybe.
I beat, yeah, because I beat Ralston, who I think was a top seed, and Gwaine Jones in the first week. So I had a really good first week, and then we started halving out all our games. I think we were in the lead, weren't we? And then I think I even lost the last round and didn't finish anywhere in the end.
That's right. Yeah, it's
You
possibly Swansea. Yeah,
yeah, it might have been
and
Swansea.
Rowson ended up winning it.
Yeah, Ralston probably won even after I beat him.
Yeah.
It just goes to
That
show.
sounds about right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you got to try and keep the momentum, and I think if you got the momentum in the later rounds, that's key. But one thing about this British though is in some other years, if you got knocked back, you can just come back again. Whereas this year, there's so many good players that just because you lose a game, you might get another hard game. You're not guaranteed to get easier
Yeah,
games, so you've got
absolutely.
to sort of try and keep the momentum going almost from the start to the finish. You can't really afford to get too far behind.
But I think you do get into contention. So if you're like an Amit or a Fernandez or a Shreyas and you stumble early, what you do have to bear in mind is people like Adams and Jones and Vic Hugo will play each other. And the probability is when they play each other, they're going to draw. So you're going to, because of the Swiss system, if you play an easier opponent, say 2300, okay, you're not guaranteed to win that game, of course, but if you do win it, you're then back in the running. So I think it will come down to the last 2 or 3 rounds, as it always seems to.
Yeah,
And
you,
some a
you've
lot,
got to stay in contention though, haven't you? You can't get too far behind because it's
no,
quite hard
no,
to.
because I think the winning score will be at least 7, possibly 7.5, which will make it very tough. I mean, if I was playing, I wouldn't, I think I'd have a very outside chance of getting 7, but 7.5, I just don't see that happening. So, even seven's very tough. So
That's a
this
huge score, isn't it, in this field? Seven out of
It's a huge
nine.
score. But for people like Mickey Adams, it's not really like that's kind of par for the course almost, right?
I,
Uh
I, I sort of feel Mickey might score something like 6.5 in this tournament. Seven, he would have to really push the boat out a bit. But I do think he's the kind of player who is actually stronger when players try to beat him because if you play
mm,
solidly against him, he's quite often okay with a draw. But I remember years in the past where people like Gawain and David have tried to beat Mickey and then it's
uh,
actually ended up backfiring on them. So, he has obviously got that experience. He's an incredibly strong player. And I think he's actually an 8 times British champion. So,
that's right. I mean, that's a
yeah,
phenomenal record. I mean, I
yeah.
think there was a long period from around about 1997 onwards that he was playing in places like Dortmund around about the same time. They didn't meet his fee for the British. Now, obviously, as he's got older, he hasn't possibly getting those invites like he used to. So therefore, he's playing the British Championships. But I think if he'd have played in that period, during that period, like late 90s, 2000s, he probably would have won like at least 5 or 6 more British Championships.
I mean, he was really strong at his peak, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a genuine 2700 player, but that's probably why I put Viti Yugov as a favourite because Viti Yugov was maybe closer to his peak. You could argue it's a little bit like tennis, like tennis.
Yeah.
Adams has stopped winning the British now. Last year was the only time I can remember when he played where he didn't win it. Now it's the same with tennis. You get like people like Djokovic and Nadal and Federer. They were
That's like
dominating.
that's like your Michael Adams, is it?
Yeah. Well, not quite, but the equivalent for the British Championships, and they were
Sure.
winning all the time. But once they stopped winning, they found it very hard to restart winning. If you say what, so I mean, the only thing I would say with Adams is Van Chuck recently, who's quite about 3 or 4 years older than Adams, recently had some amazing results, so that might inspire him.
Sure.
And he also won. He won Cambridge, which is quite a strong tournament. So he's obviously got. I mean, I put him at 5-1, which is a massive. That's obviously he's got a massive chance. But the thing I would say, Nick, is with Ami, someone like Ami, you're going to get for someone like Ami to win it. He's going to get those games in round 7, round 8, round 9 against Adams, against Jones, against Yugov, maybe David.
Yeah, it's gonna have to win. I mean,
It,
Ami and Gawain and Vichugov, they're all about the same age, aren't they? They're all late 30s, I think.
mm.
So
Oh, is Gawain late 30s? I would have had him younger than that, but yeah, he
I
probably
think
is
I
now.
think he is.
Yeah.
So they're all sort of at the age where I guess what the peak age of a chess player is maybe mid 30s, do you think, or early 30s? So
Well,
they're
it used to be late 20s. Like when Bobby Fischer became world champion, it was about 27. And I think I hit my peak period around about late 20s.
okay.
Because your mind is kind of a little bit more supple at that point. But yeah, I would say late 20s, but it may have changed. But obviously, for someone like Keith Arkle, his peak is probably his mid 60s, right?
But no, but I think when he was younger, he was like 25, 50, wasn't he, Keith?
25-40 was his peak, yeah, 25-45 maybe. So
Yeah.
therefore, yeah, I mean, arguably he was probably possibly slightly better, but he certainly had very good results as a senior player. And it's the same with people like Mark Hebden and Peter Wells.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I
those,
just
those kind of players can cause big upsets for definite.
but I just feel that to break through, you need someone younger. So I could be looking at maybe like in a few years' time, I think you could be looking at a Super Tit or an Ethan Pang potentially as a contender.
Yeah.
Shreyas, though, he could break through this year. I don't think it's not inconceivable. He
I
could break
mean,
through and win it.
yeah, he sort of proved that he can handle, those top three players in the past, hasn't he? So he's able to, compete on an even terms with them. So I think he's the one who could really maybe cause the upset. And I think didn't Matthew Wadsworth beat someone quite good last year? Was it?
Luke McShane,
Yeah, so he's another player who could do it.
great game against Luke. Luke McShane, I think, is if I mention like who's the strongest player not to win the British, like Mark Hebden would come up in that conversation. Uh, but certainly the strongest by far to never win the British is Luke McShane because I think he lost in 2 playoffs at Hull and there was one in Wales in Llandudno. And
Sure.
also the year that Ramesh won, I don't even remember Ramesh won in 1998,
Yeah,
possibly. He beat Luke McShane
that
with
was a really
black.
strong tournament, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually, not sure if it was actually.
They had all the Indian players. I remember playing
Oh yeah,
Sasha Kiran and Sandy Pan and I don't know, a few other
I
players.
played I played Ramesh in one of the early rounds. I didn't realise how strong he was. He'd go on to be this great coach. But we drew, and then he beat Luke McShane with black in the last round. And Luke McShane was, yeah, that was a year. That's why I keep coming back to the scar tissue thing because at that point you would have thought well, Luke McShane would win several British championships. But I think because of those failures, it made it harder for him to break through.
Well, when you look at fields like this now, maybe the best chances are gone, aren't they? Now it's going to be quite tough to
Yeah, I mean,
win against a field like this.
I'm not. Yeah, that's why I think the commentary is, potentially making more financially than if I played as a player. So that's something you do have to take into consideration. It's more of a gamble if I played, right?
Sure, but
I might break even is basically the
yeah,
point if I played.
it's not all about money, Danny.
Oh, it is for me, mate. That's
Yeah.
easy for you to say. It's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I mean, there's a lot of pressure playing the British. I find for me, it's the opening preparation, which I find hardest. And if you're playing a lot of tournaments, it's a lot easier. But if you're just coming into it cold, it's very hard because
Mm,
you're just a bit rusty. So I probably would rather be in, playing more regularly to play a tournament like this. But yeah, I mean, maybe just to sort of wrap up then. So
yeah.
you think there's a chance for an upset? I mean, I personally think it's going to be one of the top three. I would be a bit surprised if it isn't, and I certainly think Vichugov, um, and maybe Gawain are the two favourites.
Yeah, yeah, I'd go along with that. I think if David came in, that might change.
But yeah, they'll definitely change if David played.
He might be the favourite then, or joint favourite with Viktor Yugov. But I mean, the English Championships will tell us a lot as well about how ambitious Viktor Yugov is to beat these guys
Yeah,
because he's
yeah,
played in that.
yeah. Because I mean,
Uh,
that's one of the things that when the top three play each other, they don't want to lose, do they? So they'll probably end up drawing
and
those
not having a
games most
draw,
likely.
right? But yeah, I think because it's 9 rounds, Nick, and this is the main point of it, you could make an argument that the old system was better because 11 rounds um, was, more chance for separation. Whereas now you got 9 rounds, it's hard. It's very hard to actually avoid a playoff, even for like the 2600 guys,
Yeah,
because sorry, yeah, yeah,
yeah. I'm not. I do agree with that, but I also think that they used to have the British used to take 2 weeks, and that also took like too long. So if you're going to
yeah.
do an 11 round tournament, I think you should have a couple of double round days, maybe in the early part of the tournament, because otherwise, 2 weeks is not practical these days. People have got
Well,
other
the
things going
British
on.
in a few years, mate. Sorry, this is the last thing I'll say because we really better stop. I've got like a doctor's appointment in a few minutes, but
Sure,
um, I think it'll be 2 rounds a day soon because every other tournament now is graduating towards 2 rounds. They'll have 2 rounds a day, right?
sure.
And
Yeah.
then nobody will want to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like it when there's a mix like 1 round, 2 rounds. That's not too bad, but yeah, I guess
yeah, yeah.
it's the kind of crown jewel of the British chess scene, isn't it? So
That's it.
it does make sense to do 1 round a day, and yeah, I think the format is quite good overall, and
Yeah, I agree with
it
you, mate.
attracts a strong
I'm
field.
looking forward to doing the commentary with you. I'll just try to remind me to let you get a word in edgeways because that's the hardest. It's just I love the sound of my own voice, and like
Yeah,
you've got to not let me get carried away.
I think
So
everybody wants to hear you speak though, Danny. So
that's it, mate. That's it. Now it should be good fun, mate. I'm looking forward to it. But I think we better stop there. But please like, comment, and subscribe because otherwise these videos won't get promoted on the algorithm. And yeah, thanks again, Nick, for joining me for this betting preview sponsored by William Hill Bookies, Anik. For
okay,
the
thanks then, Danny. Thanks then.
All right, mate.
Okay, thanks
Okay,
then.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.